Hey greatness, it's me, Sister Mathina. And I've been going to a lot more events lately, especially since y'all know we trying to be outside. And I hear and experience something often as I reflect on over almost 22 years of doing this work. I find a few things to be true. And so I want to talk about them for a few moments for those of us who are space curators for women. And let me start by asking you this question. Have you ever left an event and you felt inspired, but not necessarily changed? And if you've ever hosted an event where you wanted to see change and transformation, yet you knew that something might have been a little bit missing. I think that the key here for many of us who move from hosting events to hosting true experiences is we realize that when we get together, that's an event. If you want to curate an experience that changes someone and changes who someone becomes, then your event has to become a gateway. And this is not about better programming. It's not about intentional design only. It's about intentional design that allows us to live in a few really clear truths, right? For those of us that when we've planned events, or for those who are currently planning events, and your event experience doesn't transform, it's because we often have spent too much time focused on content and not on the container. We spent too much time prioritizing the look, the ethic, or aesthetics of the event, not whether or not the event and the experience from beginning to end is in alignment. And then that means you spent a lot of time working on logistics and pulling all those things together. But how much time did we invest in the emotional architecture of what we were building and creating? In order to create moments that have meaning, that is where you have to start, because transformation is not accidental. It is designed. There are three things that I want to offer. And before I even get into that, drop in the chat, right? Let me know in the comments, because I'm not going to be long. I've been working on getting this a little bit shorter, but y'all let me know. Y'all got to talk to me, okay? I want you to drop in the comments if you have ever gone to an event and it's not that you didn't enjoy your time, you had a good time, but it wears off by the time you get to the parking lot, or maybe even the next 24 hours. It didn't actually change you. And I believe that if we want our gatherings to become gateways to transformation and becoming, then there are three things that we want to do. We have to begin shifting our agenda to intention. Not just I'm creating an agenda. What is the intention? Meaning, ask yourself, what is this room here to become? What is this room here to become? Not what are we doing? You hear the difference between those? Because when you start with what is this room here to become, you can reverse engineer the success of the transformation you hope to facilitate in the space. Okay? So not just what are we doing, but what must shift in the hearts of the women in this space. Gatherings must be anchored in purpose, not just programming. And it requires us to move or shift away from activity and designing emotional arcs. No, that doesn't mean you want to force people to cry. Okay. What I'm talking about is an emotional arc creates the space for people to access their own truth. I literally said this in a training yesterday. I asked a woman a question about what about in this example, I said, what about the 10-year-old girl activated something in 10-year-old you that you wanted to curate an entire experience for girls like you and her. And she immediately was like, why do you want me to start crying? And broke down in tears. And I said, I'm not making you cry. It's your truth. So I'm not talking about crying. I'm talking about breakthrough transformation. I'm talking about taking off some of those, that emotional charge that could potentially be there. That charge could actually be anger, sis. Okay? That charge could actually be unlocking something that helps them access freedom so that joy comes to the forefront in an abounding way. Every transformational experience follows an arc. And the arc is related to the flow of the event and experience, but also the flow of the emotion that your participant, your sis, your client, however you want to frame it, is going to go through. So there is arrival, there's the disarming, then you have the reveal, right? What gets revealed not just in the experience, but in the person. And then there's a question or decision for release, even if the question is never asked, even if the decision is unconscious, it is a decision on what to release, what to let go of, because we let go of something to bring things in. And then there's the integration. Okay. Integration is after everything I've just experienced, that's the hearing, that's the touching, that's the learning. After everything I've just experienced, where does it live in my life? Where does it live in my being? Or does it even? So that's the arc. Drop it in the comments. Let me know if you're picking up what I'm putting down. If you don't design the emotional arc, the room is going to default to surface level interaction. Don't ask me why. Something's in my eye. Okay. The room is going to dissolve into that surface level interaction. Tell me you've seen it. Tell me you've seen this. That it's like, oh yeah. And you know, the safest way that you know your room has devolved into surface level interaction, people start talking about what they do for work, what they do. It's a safety net. All right, last one. I told y'all this is not going to be long. The third piece here is you want to shift, okay? You want to shift from hosting or being a host to being an architect. Shift from being a host to being an architect. That is that other piece. Because let's real quick. First shift, intention, okay? So from activity or program to intention. Your agenda to attention. 2, shifting from activity to designing an emotional arc and knowing that it's there, right? The third shift that we're making is from being a host to being an architect. What is the difference, Mathina? That's what you're asking me. Got you. A host, if I distill it down, a host entertains. They maintain what's going on, entertaining the room. When you step into the event curation architecture, an architect engineers change, right? As an architect, you begin to consider a few things and you consider it from the beginning and through the infrastructure of what you're building. So here's a few things that you want to consider as an architect. You want to consider the energy flow in your room. What is happening as things are moving? When does it get stagnant? And what are you doing to lift it back up? Psychological safety. How do you curate the space so some of the things that can happen in our mind gets lowered and people know how to manage themselves, but also that you've created a psychologically safe environment? You have to consider belonging. How do you curate a space where people feel like, no, I'm supposed to be here? And if they're not, if you're like, what if I don't want them there? I don't think you need my help for not wanting them there. But let me know. Send me a message, okay? You also want to consider the story that you've woven into the experience and the stories that you tell. And finally, as an architect, you want to consider how you're going to close the experience, the closure, the fastener. You know, okay, I'm about to go on a rant. Nope, come back. So I'm about to go on a long diatribe, but we ain't going to go there. Let's just stay focused. I'll tell you how to get my diatribe in a minute. Because I think one of the most critical aspects that I think of and some of the leaders in the spaces that I absolutely love and adore is that we know that we're not planning an event. When you want to step into events that aren't just events, they're experiences, gatherings that aren't just gatherings, they're gateways, then you know that you're not just hosting or planning an event, you're constructing a portal. You're constructing a gateway for how those attendees, and I would say women, right? Because y'all know who I'm talking to, how the women who say yes are going to move through what you're building for them. I want to give a simple framework to help. Okay. So we gave you 3 things that you want to shift and consider where you need to shift. So this equation, if you will, to creating a gateway is this: intention, emotional design, facilitated connection, and sacred closure equals transformation. I'll say that again. Intention, emotional design, facilitated connection, sacred closure equals transformation. I say sacred closure. I believe in every event, something sacred is at stake. How someone is becoming and how you curate the gateway for them to access a breakthrough in their own self. It's not about you doing the thing. It's about the space that we curate for that thing, for that being to transform. Okay. I think what taught me this the most in the last 22 years, and certainly in the last like 7 or 8, it has been how connection moves us through chaos. That when things seem to be falling apart, Mathina's world is centered around how sisterhood becomes the antidote for any ailment in 98% of what women deal with. And when that is threatened, there needs to be a cure that also is going to come through sisterhood. It's the antidote. So when chaos comes, we have to look at it as a classroom. If you caught my other one, I was just talking about this. We have to look at it as a classroom. And what am I here to learn? That has been proven to me over and over again in a number of spaces, but all of which include women who desire truly to see themselves grow and evolve and want that for other women, and then their families and everyone else who ripples out of that. So I'm gonna close this out. I just really want to encourage you to think that through. Now, if you are in fact someone who's like, Mathina, I do want a little bit more, tell me more. If you're a woman who already plans events, if you're a facilitator, a leader, a tribe builder who wants to have your gatherings not be hosted, but curated spaces for healing to live, then I do want to invite you to join me on March 5th. On March 5th, I'm doing a webinar called From Gathering to Gateway. And in this webinar, we're going to do the blueprint. We're going to touch on the blueprint for really going deeper in how to design a transformational arc in your experiences. And then we're going to talk about how to curate the opportunity to center belonging. And I'm going to do that in the first 10 minutes. I'm not even in the first 10 minutes. And then we're going to look at the exact sequence that moves a room from guarded to open. I just did this last night. I hosted an event last night. A number of women, some knew each other, most did not. And we instituted and brought in our Gathering Glow deck and allowed the deck to be the door that opened up conversation among those women. And I'm tickled because I got a message that said, sis, you created a therapy experience in a card game. So I'm so grateful for what my years have taught me and how to deliver this work in a way where you can pick it up and carry it forward. The architect behind these Sonova experiences is this: if you know you're meant to build rooms that become gateways, then we want you to join us on March 5th, because the reason why I say to you that the architecture behind Nisa Nova experiences is belonging. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. So I look forward to seeing you on March 5th, where we're going to build it. And I want to hear your questions. We'll click on the link below, drop me a comment, let me know how this is resonating with you. And I'll be brutally honest with y'all right now. My head is pounding. So I'm about to go grab me some water. I'm going to hydrate, and I'm going to come back later. I'm going to check out your comments and your posts. And I look forward to seeing you all in a couple of weeks, March 5th. All right.